Now, the country's energy crisis is being worsened by bad weather conditions. That's according to the outgoing Eskom CEO, André Ruyter. On the weekend, the power utility announced the return of stage 6 load shedding once again, citing breakdowns of several electricity generating units. The relentless load shedding has impacted small businesses, farmers, and also interrupted the country's economic growth trajectory. Ruyter says there is hope, as the persistent higher stages of blackout should be alleviated by Wednesday evening. Let's now get to energy expert Hilton Trollip, who joins us for an analysis on the state of the grid. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. We've just heard some of the developments and the plans for the province of Gauteng. The State of the Province address delivered just now by Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi, speaking about some of the plans, talking about rooftop solar panels and health facilities, schools and so forth. Just before we get into the deeper details, what do you make of that plan?
I didn't hear what he said, but if he's talking about putting rooftop solar onto buildings, onto provincial buildings and to houses, shopping centres, etc., that it definitely will help a little bit with the load shedding, but it won't make a substantial difference over the next year or two. But it's long overdue, and we must do as much of it as possible because it makes financial sense both for the owners of the PV panels and for the country as a whole.
André Ruyter dismissing any likelihood of a total blackout with the new developments and moving along to stage 6 load shedding. What's your take on that?
So we have to differentiate between a total blackout and the level of load shedding. So what a blackout is if the system operator, that's the national grid, that's the electricity grid that connects all the generators to each other and to customers. If the demand on that grid, the amount of power that people want by switching on stuff, goes above the available supply, then you can get a blackout. That's why we have load shedding. So the system operator will, and I believe it is highly reliable and professional, and it's shown it can operate under pressure, the system operator will just continually switch off demand so that we don't exceed supply. And yes, that's very unlikely. But we need to differentiate between that and increased levels of load shedding. In other words, longer times every day for people for load shedding, not having power. And the CEO definitely did not rule that out. We're at level 6. That means about 40 out of a total of 80 big units, generating units, are currently out of action. And of that 40, only 10 of them are on unplanned maintenance. The other 30, approximately, it changes all the time, I don't follow every one, but 30 of them are broken down unplanned maintenance. That's like a car that has not been serviced properly and breaks down on the road. And that is the big problem that Eskom have been telling us about for years now. Basically, Eskom is not set up and does not have the resources to fix half of its fleet broken down all the time of the coal fleet. So what Eskom have been saying also for years, and louder recently, is it needs government to run the IPPP program, that's the Independent Power Producer program, to get more generation onto the grid, to create what André Ruyter called headroom. That's space for Eskom to do the maintenance on those machines that are broken down. And government is just, Cyril Ramaphosa failed to mention that the IPP program run by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has performed exceptionally badly now for 7 years. So at least half of this problem is not getting new generation onto the grid, and a very important part of the solution is getting it onto the grid, which is to help the other half of the problem, which is fixing those coal-fired power stations. So until government does, as Ruyter and Eskom, and every independent expert that you can find at the CSIR, at UCT, etc., says has to happen. Until government does that, we're into this vicious cycle of Eskom under huge pressure to fix more units at any time than it has the resources to do, and to keep its head above water. And then if we just, that's not a very, I didn't mean that, but then if we have a flood, which we will, or various, a hurricane or storm or whatever, which upsets coal supply or knocks down power lines or whatever, then we'll get pushed over the edge. So André de Ruyter, although he hopes by Wednesday to get units back on, who knows, what the weather gods or the various unforeseen circumstances are bringing.
Yep.
So we're always on the brink, living on the edge. And now, actually, the edge is stage 6 load shedding. We're getting used to always being, not used to, people are suffering, really, especially poor people. This has become the new normal, level 6, whereas it used to be the new normal would be load shedding will be over in 6 months. Now we're not sure how long it will take. It will get better, but no, it's not going to get better until Gwede Mantashe's Department of Mineral Resources and Energy stops putting most of its efforts into interfering at Eskom, into pushing coal, and to actually implementing the so-called balanced energy mix and getting wind and solar onto the grid as fast as possible, which South Africa can do.
We
the
are
unfortunately
going to have to leave it there for now. I'm sorry to cut you short. Living on the edge, indeed. Energy expert Hilton Trollip joining us there for an analysis on the current power grid. Now.